Good evening, everyone. I'm Apostle T.B. Walker. I want to take this time to welcome you to Thursday evening Bible study. Certainly glad to have you all come on and be with me as I'm looking into the Word of God. We're breaking over the Word of God together. We're in a place of worship. You know, whenever we are in a time where we're gathered together, the Bible says where two or three are gathered together in His name, He would be in the midst. This was pre-internet time, so when these scriptures were written, there wasn't even a thought about the internet. And now that the internet is here, the question is going to be well, we're not together in a group. Is Jesus still here? Well, the ability for Jesus to move from heart to heart and breast to breast and to be present with us is a small thing for God. The fact that He's with me, that He's with you, that wherever we are, no matter where you are in the world, worshiping God through the Word, you're going to find out that where two or three are gathered, whether that person's in India, another person is in Pakistan, another person, is in America, God is going to make sure that He is really in the midst of our fellowship. Not necessarily in the midst of what we're doing, but in the midst of our worship. And that's the key, that we understand that we're worshiping. Listen, we're a Bible study today. We're going to be coming out of the book of Romans chapter 5. I'm just going to read just a few verses, 3 through 4, just two verses. Hopefully I'll even get to verse number 4. I expect that I will today, but I think there's a lot that's in the scripture in 3 and 4. Both, there's a lot in these scriptures that as believers we need to grab hold of. We really need to understand, and in some ways we may need to relearn. Let's take a look at the word. Hi, Mom. No, okay, let me read this for you. It says, and not only that, but we also glory in tribulations, knowing that tribulation produces perseverance, and perseverance character, and character hope. This is from the New King James Version. Let's pray. Father, in the name of Jesus, God, we just thank you once again for your word. Thank you for this opportunity that we have to sup with you again. God, we just bless you right now that you allowed us to be in a place where we're able to do it, and that you made a way even when all forces of evil are against the word of God. You still allowed there to be freedom and the ability for the word to flow. You promised you would be with us until the end of the age, and we bless you right now that though this age is not over, we look up and we can still see your glory. We bless you. We thank you in Jesus' name. Amen. Now, let's take a look at the word here, because Paul starts out by saying, not only that, now let's start with what the scripture is before that. The ending of the scripture is talking about some rejoicing, and at the end of it, it says, and we rejoice in hope of the glory of God, which is that's the big amen moment. We rejoice in the hope of the glory of God. Now, Paul comes and he says something that is absolutely mind blowing. He comes and says, well, not only that, that's in some ways, that's the natural response. In some ways, that's the easy one. We glory in the hope, of God, right? And that He is going to come, that what He has promised that He's going to do in terms of His return is going to be there, and that we're going to share in that glory. That's a wonderful thing. But Paul now begins to deal with how we are to live now, what we are to do right now. And he says, not only that, but we also glory in tribulations. Now, if exalting and glorying, which is what this is, in trials, where like an automatic response was a natural response, we'd see people dancing and shouting everywhere, because everybody has trials. Trials and tribulations are natural. Many of the afflictions of the righteous. So when you look at the word, we would, people would be jumping and shouting everywhere. But we don't see that. We don't see that. We would hear it all over the place, but we don't see that. What we hear, what we see, is instead people complaining. People are murmuring all over, and not just not unbelievers, not people who don't know Jesus, but I'm talking about Christians that are grumbling about trials and tribulations. They're not rejoicing. We're not exalting in them, and that's one of the reasons why the Lord comes and says, we need to really, really get this down, because there's power in this exaltation, in the midst of perseverance, in the midst of trials and tribulation. When Paul talks about this exalting, he's actually talking about boasting. Paul is saying, I actually boast or glory in trials. Remember, they were talking about the idea, and that's what Paul starts out says. He says, "Not we rejoice in hope of the glory of God." Paul says, well, we don't only rejoice in that, we also rejoice. We actually brag. We actually boast about the trials that we are able to endure. See, I want you to understand this. When you look at believers, it doesn't matter whether we're caught in a traffic jam, Doesn't matter whether somebody didn't, give us the right change back at McDonald's. We're late for an appointment. There, traffic was just backed up, or even something major. Could be something major. You got a call about a loved one that is sick. No matter what it is, our natural knee jerk response is to grumble. I'm not talking about being sad. I'm talking about we get angry. We start grumbling. We get angry with God. And we saw this with the children of Israel. When they were in the wilderness, God had pulled them out and had delivered them in the wilderness. He brought them out by his mighty hand out of Egypt. Pharaoh came to himself and said, "What did I do? Why did I let these people go?" And then he sends a whole army after them to pursue them. Well, guess what? They were swallowed up in the Red Sea. The children of Israel celebrated like it was just an awesome feat. They were glad. They were singing. Moses wrote a song. It was awesome. There was a great party. But then we read later on that they went simply 3 days in the wilderness and they found only bitter water. They didn't find any water. So what did they do? Well, of course, you know what they did. They rejoiced, right? They came and said, "Let's see what God is going to do. We know that He has promised to be with us. We remember what He just did in terms of bringing us out of the biggest, largest empire in the world. The most powerful empire in the world at that time was Egypt, and God brought slaves out by Himself through one guy, Moses, and they rejoiced over it. But once they got to this point where there was no bitter water, you know what they said? They said, the people grumbled and said, "What are we going to drink?" They had forgotten what God had done. Well, let me tell you what God did. God then showed Moses how to make the water drinkable. The people rejoiced, and then they grumbled again because they looked and said, "We don't have any food. What are we going to do for food?" They began to look back on Egypt and they said, "I remember what it was like in Egypt where we used to eat to the full." They talked about having meat. I mean, they made it. See, when we don't exalt, when we don't rejoice, even in tribulations, what we begin to do is we rejoice over a lying past. We rejoice over a past we recreate. We begin to create a past that's better than the present. And we can forget the deliverance that God has given us right there. What does God do? God sends them quail. They murmur again. What does God do with food? God sends them manna to eat. They travel in the desert, and then what do? They complain about, well, the manna was cool, but that's starting to wear out. That's starting to get old. The quail was cool, but that's starting to get old. And what about the water? You led us to water day by day, but like we don't know what's going to happen down the road. So the history of the children of Israel for 40 years was complaining in spite of God's provision. And listen, this story isn't, again, a history lesson, but it's a warning to us. Paul wants us to be able to see that the grumbling through our trials has consequences. There are consequences that are there because it's an attitude, it's a mindset. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Now, get this. We're not talking about, I'm sick. How you feeling? Oh, I'm great. Nothing's happening. I'm not even claiming that. No, this isn't some name it and claim it mumble jumble. God is in no way, nor is the Bible teaching us to somehow deny reality. That, the Bible's not one of those like, come on, smile, put on a happy face. Pretend that all is well. Pretend that you're just praising the Lord in spite of what's going on, even though you're hurting inside. No. Paul says, in Romans chapter 12, verse 5, he says something interesting. He says, "Weep with those that weep." He doesn't say, listen, when people are in trials, exhort them to rejoice in their trial. He says, weep. Because weeping isn't a sign of giving up. Weeping is an emotional response to a trial. I remember I was doing a funeral. And I remember the person had like a lot of family that came in, a lot of friends that came in from out of town. And I remember one friend walked up and he just, he was just so. I mean, the service was really, it was a really difficult service because the young man was young. The family was really a tight family, and it was really, no matter what was going on, you could see that they were hurting, they were grieving, their hearts were broken. And this brother walks up and he says, we ought to be rejoicing right now. And he comes up and he's like, "Praise the Lord." And he says it so loud. And he says, "You know what? John's in glory right now." And I wanted to just choke him on the spot. When I heard him say that, because it didn't have the effect that he thought it would. The Bible when you look at this, I wanted to say, listen, let her weep. Matter of fact, what you ought to be doing is weeping with her. Because that's what Paul said. Weep with those that weep. So exulting and boasting in trials does not mean denying pain. The fact that you are able to say, for God I live and for God I die, that I'm going to bless the Lord at all times, even now, does not mean that if you have tears coming down your eyes, or that you aren't striking up the band and there's not a party going on, it doesn't mean at all that you somehow lack faith. Paul recognized that there's tension between this. This whole idea of, like, if I'm going to rejoice, don't I need to be happy? Paul said, listen, in 2 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 10, here's what he said, and this is really powerful. He says, as sorrowful, yet always rejoicing. You see the balance? Paul recognized here is a natural reality, but here is a spiritual reality that trumps the natural reality. Paul didn't say, and you know what, that rejoicing took away my sorrow. He never says that. Paul just recognizes that there's something at work here in the midst of tribulation. In the midst of trials, God is not, his hands are not up. In the midst of trials, God is not saying to us, I designed everything else. I ordered your steps in every other way except this. Listen, this is really important that you get this, because Paul even talked about how there was a situation where his emotions were all over the place. They were everywhere. I want to read this to you in 2 Corinthians chapter 7. This is at 4. He says, I am acting with great boldness towards you. I have great pride in you. I am filled with comfort. In all our afflictions, I am overflowing with joy. For even when we came into Macedonia, our bodies had no rest, but we were afflicted at every turn, fighting without and fear within. Did you hear that? Paul says, I'm fighting outside, but even inside of me, there's fear. But this is what he said. But God, who comforts the downcast, comforted us by the coming of Titus. Listen, Paul talked about the fact that the trials that he had were being undergirded by his genuine joy in the Lord. And listen, I want you to understand this. I'm blessed and highly favored. Those are just words. Unless there's a genuine connection to the Lord, and unless you have actually invested yourself to such an extent that the joy of the Lord is actually strength for you, this will actually get on your nerves. In the natural realm, this is something, let me cry. Let me be by myself. Let me go into a depression. Let me do whatever I need to do to get through this. And let me tell you something. That's because in times of trial, many of us do not lean on God. We lean on emotion. We look not to the Lord, but we look to our situation. Listen, let me tell you what Paul said. He says, all discipline for the moment seems not to be joyful. Did you get that? He said, and he calls these trials discipline. He says, they seem not to be joyful, but sorrowful. He says, yet to those who've been trained by it. And that's the thing. And you know what? If you're here, if you're listening to me, if you are a believer and you're above the age of 10, you've been trained. All you have to do is look back and you'll realize God's been training you in this. He said, listen, all this discipline for a moment doesn't seem joyful. It seems sorrowful. It's no different than if you get out on the track. It's weird to get out there, for the first time after some time, and you get out there with some person who does it for a while, and they're tired just like you, but they're running. And they seem to get some joy out of that exercise. They seem to love it. The guy who's lifting weights, as he continues to put more on, eventually he starts to love it. But if you just got into the gym, you might look at him like crazy, like, man, this hurts. This is painful. Well, how's he able to rejoice? Well, guess what? It hurts him too. It's painful for him too. But you know what? In the training, he's actually seeing what it can produce. He realizes doing this, even to the point of pain and exhaustion, builds muscles. I like those. Man, running like this, it makes my whole chest burn, but it builds a level of endurance. Man, I get to medal. I get to run in front of people when I run this race. I can roll my head up because I've been trained. Why? Because the person's been trained, recognizes that after the trial, there's fruit that comes from that. The trial is not just for nothing. There's fruit. You listen. You see the same thing with the psalmist. David is talking about a situation where he despairs for his life. His enemies are trying to kill him, and he even goes to a point where he starts questioning God, wondering, God, where are you? Why are you delaying your deliverance? He has anguish over what he's going on over. But at the end of the psalm, like David doesn't, there's no denying of the reality. But at the end of the psalm, he was not out of grave danger, but he talks about being filled with joy and the praise of God. The danger had not abated, but when we patiently endure the trial, we realize there's fruit that comes from this. God is our comfort. He comforts us in our trials. It is really like that second wind that comes. And like you don't really know how it happens, but you are just exhausted. I mean, you ready to, if you're playing basketball, you ready to call somebody like, let me go out. And something happens if you just push through that. And what athletes call it the second wind. You get this new burst of energy that only the trial of having that chest burning produces. It produced a second wind. So when you get this, you'll understand exactly what Paul is talking about. This isn't pie in the sky. This isn't just Christian niceties that are being spoken. Paul is talking about a formula that's being revealed to us how God wants to bless us. Listen, Paul uses tribulation. He uses a really, really strong word. And it's not about minor inconveniences. I've got a headache. I'm going through tribulation. People don't like me. I'm going through tribulation. No, these are real hardships. This is Paul talking about God using real hardships for my good. And we're getting this from Paul. Paul knew this like better than most of us. And I want you to begin to see this. This isn't like sitting down with your head down and handling this. Paul says, listen, these tribulations, these stresses, these things that can break people, and they do break people. We can glory in those. Why? Because we know that it's an occasion to produce endurance, perseverance. I know what God is doing. We brag, we boast in it by saying, "Come on, Lord, I get it. I'm on the page with you. I'm not grumbling because I understand what's going on. If you ask me to do another lap, a person who understands where we're going is looking and saying, yeah, but I'm going to the Olympics. So I'm not looking at my coach crazy. Doesn't mean my chest isn't hurting. Doesn't mean my legs don't hurt. Doesn't mean that I want to do another lap. I've gotten a medal before. See, Paul has been in the medal round before. He's gotten a medal before. He's been delivered before. See, people with experience recognize I can see what is happening. And every runner that runs, in order to really maximize, they've got to be stressed. Well, guess what? It's the same thing for the Christian life. The Christian life, tribulation is actually part of our life. Many of the afflictions of the righteous, this is a part of our lives. And we oftentimes pray against this. We don't want this. This is the stuff that we're asking, Lord, take this away. And listen, I want you to challenge yourself and ask yourself, what do you think? Do you think that we should actually desire? Should we actually hope for a tribulation, discipline-free Christian life? I want you to think about that. Is this what we should pray? Lord, keep all of that from me. Now, I want you to look what Paul is saying. Here's the formula that's been revealed. Here is how I get to endurance. I get to endurance through persecution. I get to endurance through tribulations. I get to endurance. I'm actually able to handle it after being bathed in it for a season. So how in the world am I supposed to rejoice over that? That doesn't sound like a good thing. Why? Well, what's Paul talking about in terms of rejoicing? Well, these God is using these. He doesn't say like these are things that are just happening to you. God is actually using tribulation. It's in His hands. He's working it. So when you begin to look at God working, He's working things out for our good. He's making all things work together for our good. So the same God who's able to use what the enemy means for evil for good is the same God who's able to use tribulation for a wonderful effect in our lives. And listen, know this. The other part is that God knows how much you can take. You know what? I mean, if you ever watch somebody, a coach, and a coach says, give me another round for a boxer, or give me another lap, and the person says, I just can't, I can't do another one. And isn't it amazing that that same person, if they obey the coach, if they drag themselves, if they try, that they might fall down. I've seen people get to the finish line and they've thrown up. They've given it all up, but they made it to the finish line. Listen, when they're all cleaned up, when it's all over, they made it. When it's all said and done, and they look better than they did when they were, had vomit all over them. When that's over, there's a medal around their neck. They made it. When it's all over, they're able to act. Nobody can take away from the fact that, like, you did 2 miles. Your best was a mile and a half before. You now can run 2 miles. You know it for certain. If anybody ever says, can you do it? You actually can say, not only can I do it, but I have a resume to prove it. Do you understand what God is doing? There's some people going through trials and tribulations right now who have no idea. You don't have the resume you need to go to the next level. Here is what God is doing. I'm filling in the blanks in your resume to qualify you to go to the next level. And the next level is not for people who don't know how to endure persecution. It's not for people who can't handle tribulation. Matter of fact, it's for people who learn how to rejoice in it. Listen, I'm not talking about, I'll go through it, let me grit my teeth. Paul says this is a whole nother thing. He says, I want you to rejoice in it because God has measured out the amount of tribulation that you are able to face. This is too much. It can't be. Steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord. I can't handle it. Cannot be. It's impossible. Lord, I'm not going to make it. That's not possible. God is the one who put the weight. God, listen, if it was the enemy, you got to understand the enemy comes to steal, kill, and to destroy. So there's no way he put a weight on you that you could carry. He would want to kill you. But God is looking for people who are willing to be tried. Listen, if you are who you say you are, then, we ought to be pleased to actually put our faith and our religion to the test. Listen, I mean, if you ever seen somebody who can run ball, like who can really play, they are never worried about a challenge. They're not looking and saying, oh, wow, he's really good. Like, if I know I can play, I'm constantly telling them, let's bring it on then. No, now he's a big boy. He's banging, and I get it, but bring it on. I mean, this is what I do. Why would I do that anyway if I really thought it was good and I wanted to win? Because I recognize that it's this kind of wreck right here that makes me better. It's coming up against greater competition is what increases me. Right? It's that little kid who's always getting his ball smacked down, but he's 9 years old playing with 14 years old, 14-year-olds. So what's going to happen when he's 14? Oh, he's going to be balling. Why? Because he got his shot smacked down over and over again. He had to learn how to jump higher. He had to learn how to get around guys who were bigger and faster than him. And when the fruit comes, then those days of crying and having somebody take your ball and people not picking you, all of a sudden that may produce an NBA star. Getting cut from the team produced the Michael Jordan. So when you begin to look at what's going on here, God is saying, listen, I want you to now, we're not praying, God, please bring trials on my life. But we also are volunteering and saying, listen, if you need somebody to be tested, test me. I'm not going to sit around here and say I'm strong. I'm not going to sit around here and say, listen, Lord, I believe you without it being put to the test. Matter of fact, I believe in what I believe to such an extent that if a test should come, I won't go find it. I'm not going looking for it. I'm not peering through the weeds to get it. But if it comes, I'm pleased to accept it. Listen, when you trace back in the book of Acts, would you look at this? Because there was a strange response to trials. It says Acts 54, 5:41. It says, so they went on their way from the presence of the council. Now, and presence of the council, rejoicing that they had been considered worthy to suffer shame for his sake. What am I talking about? Well, this is in the book of Acts. The Sanhedrin court had flogged the apostles. And they left there. Now, you can't get flogged. You can't get a 39 lashes from the cat of nine tails and it feels good, right? There's no way. I mean, no matter what happens in those conditions, they throw brine, water, bits of salt water on your back. You didn't get a new change of clothes or anything like that. So, the cloth would be sticking still to your back unless they strip your clothes off. So there's still pain here. But check out their mindset. They said, now, what they didn't mention was the pain they were in. They didn't mention whether they were having to hold each other up, but I bet you they did. I bet you they were wincing and grimacing. I bet you physically they were feeling every lash. But here's the mindset, right? You get this. Here's the mindset. Here's what was in their spirit. Their bodies were probably dragging. Their bodies were probably aching. They probably were thirsty because when you lose blood, you want water. But here's what they wrote. Here's what they mentioned. They said, so they went on their way from the presence of the council, rejoicing. See that exaltation? They rejoiced that they had been considered worthy to suffer shame for his name. Don't forget, when Paul and Silas weren't just locked up, they were beaten. They were illegally beaten because you remember, Paul's a Roman citizen. They freaked out when they found out who he was. So they weren't even supposed to be beaten. They were in prison. They were fastened in stocks. And what happened? They shook the foundations because they were praising God in the midst of that. But around midnight, Paul and Silas were praying, singing hymns and praise to God. Let me read something else to you. 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 9 through 10. It says, most gladly, therefore, I will rather boast about my weakness so that the power of Christ may dwell in me. Do you see that? Paul says, I'm going to submit to this. Because listen, if I thought I was such a strong guy, I wouldn't need this. I know that I've got weakness. And I know not only do I have weakness, but he says, I would boast about my weakness so that the power of God may dwell in me. I would actually exalt in the fact that I've got areas of weakness. Why? Because I know what God's going to do. He's about to bring something that's going to fix it. He says, therefore, I am well content with weaknesses, with insults, with distresses, with persecutions, with difficulty for Christ's sake. For when I am weak, then I am strong. That's amazing when you begin to look at that. Paul is giving us the formula for strength in the midst of trials and tribulations. Paul is saying, rejoice in those difficulties. Acknowledge your weakness. He said, listen, you don't have to be strong. He says, rejoice in that. Listen, that almost got me, that insult. But God kept me. You know what I mean? I know I couldn't have made it through that. But God was the one who allowed me to do it. Matter of fact, here's what Paul said. In all these weaknesses, with persecution, with difficulties, here's what Paul says. When I am weak, then I am strong. When I recognize that I can't bear it, then I'm able to bear it because I'm no longer leaning on myself. Listen, these tribulations are meant for you to see how powerless you are over situations. It's meant for you to see how weak you are. Why would God do that? So that we can see how strong he is. So that we can operate in the dependence that we always needed to. It's God who simply says, you know what? You might need to confront that guy so you can realize like you can't beat him, right? But it's then you call your big brother, right? So sometimes you have to go through things because you think you can handle it, and then you got a black eye, and it's in that you realize, okay, that's not gonna stay, because my big brother's about to come in and handle this. So that's the thing that Paul is actually saying. Wherever virtue, and I want you to get this, whatever virtues you have, if tribulation is literally like a robot going in to find those virtues. Tribulation works patience. God, what are you doing? I'm actually finding the good things that are in you. Tribulation is going and weeding through all the weakness and finding the good things in you. And you know what it does? It doesn't actually make you stronger. It exposes what you already have. I didn't know I couldn't do it. You don't get a new body when you ran and when you said you couldn't run anymore. Same body. You just didn't know how strong you are. You didn't get any different arms when you told the guy, take that off. I can't, I'm not going to be able to get it up. And he said, no way. Come on. You go get it. Come on. And all of a sudden you got it up. What happened to you? You already had that in you. Tribulation goes and finds the areas that you have decided that you're weak in. And guess what happens? You become strong in those areas. It is God simply saying, all right, enough with that weakness. What am I going to do? Make me strong like Popeye? No, I'm going to bring tribulation. Tribulation is going to work patience. And in the natural, it doesn't do that. Tribulation is work patience in the natural. Tribulation works impatience in the natural realm. If you are not a saved person, if you're not a believer, tribulation, this is not for you. Because tribulation will not do that. Tribulation can't do that for the unbeliever because they don't have these attributes. And therefore, there's no fruit in the experiences. It's just straight up pain. When Paul talks about this, he says, you can be in the same room with another person going through the exact same thing. And if you are a believer, from that trauma will come fruit. From that trauma for the unbeliever is just a soured hopelessness. I knew it wasn't going to work out. Like I'm talking about even if it works out, they can't see it. I mean, it still wasn't worth it after all I went through. You know why? Because only we can stand still and see the salvation of the Lord. Listen, the natural result of affliction produces irritation. It produces complaining. It produces anger. It produces rebellion. And that rebellion is against God. It reduces question. It produces question. It produces unbelief. It produces obstinance. It produces evil. See, listen, these things come and you see people break down and they freak out. There are people who are not connected. There are people who call themselves Christians and they break down and they freak out. And I'm not coming to say, well, you're not a Christian. I'm simply saying, listen, there's an area here where you can't stay in this place and never be able to handle persecution. Because if you can't handle persecution, you can't handle tribulation, it means you don't know who's in control of it. We get away from it because, listen, it's when I see the doctor with a needle, I have to trust the doctor. I never like the needle. I don't recall a time when the needle's ever been good. It's never. At this stage of my life, after 55 plus years of living, I have not grown to like a needle, but I've learned to trust some doctors with the needle in their hand. That's the difference. You don't have to ever like pain. You don't ever have to like death. You never have to like loss, but you have to love the person who's controlling it and realizing, God, you're working something here. Listen, there's a great alteration that happens in us when our heart is renewed by the Holy Spirit. And that's exactly what happens. Our hearts get renewed in the midst of this. I need you to get this. And it's 8:01, and I'm gonna end up right here. I said we probably wouldn't get to the second verse, but I really want you to grab hold of this because God is trying to change us. God is trying to alter us. God is trying to take us to next dimensions and new levels that we have only prayed about, but we've never been to. And for many of us, right now, the doorway to those things is the next trial that you have to go through. It's the next trial you have to overcome. It's the next trial you have to endure. It's the next trial you have to rejoice in. Listen, I want you to understand something. A trial is coming. I would not be giving you this if a trial wasn't coming. But listen, a test is coming. Let me put it that way. And the test is not whether you can handle it. The test is not whether you're going to live or die. The test is going to be what's the posture in the spirit that you're going to take when these trials come. Paul said, listen, I get it. Your knee-jerk reaction is going to be rejoice. I know what's going to happen. You're going to say to yourself, why me? You're going to wonder what you did wrong to get on God's bad side. And you're going to wonder what you need to pray, what you need to do, who you need to sow into, who you need to bless, who you need to forgive. What do you need to do to get this right? And hopefully this will come to you. This lesson will come to you and you'll be reminded you didn't do anything wrong. God's elevating you. God's promoting you. And he's working some endurance in you. That's going to be a blessing for you in your life. Why? Because, in Ephesians, we're told we don't wrestle against flesh and blood, right? We know that there's demonic powers that we wrestle against. And Paul said, having done all to stand. What does endurance allow us to do? I can tell you right now, it allows us to stand. I'm talking about when you can't fight anymore. When you realize I don't have any more fight in me. And you just wake up another day and get on your 2 feet again and say, God, I'm here. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how I'm going to get through it, but I'm here. And I'm going to trust that the weight that feels crushing is not going to crush me, but you are going to, in this, make me strong. And I want you to understand, Paul says it's at that moment when I recognize the weakness, but also get the revelation. God, you put this on my shoulders. What are you saying about my shoulders? See, listen, what we miss sometimes, we're looking and saying, God, what is this trial about? And we forget that God is saying, what am I saying about your back? If I put that kind of weight on your back, what am I saying about your back? I'm not punishing you. I'm showing you how strong you really are. That's what these trials do. These trials that add character, perseverance, and hope, and all these things. It is God saying, this is what's in you. This is just fire to bubble up what is hiding beneath the trial, so that the trial is not the fruit, but it is what has been bubbled up, the hope, the fruit of the Spirit, the endurance, the after the flames, being able to stand. Listen, I want you to get that. And I hope that you grab hold of that today, because I know there's some people who are going to really, really need that. That as we are in a very difficult season and a very difficult time in our country here in America, and in the world, all over the world, you can see difficult times. And Christ is calling for us to do something. And you know what that is? To endure tribulation. There's some things that are going to come our way as believers, and we're called to endure. But know this, The government can't put these trials. The government's not going to put these trials on us. The government can't. They would try to kill us. There are religious groups that will come against us. They'll try to kill us. You might be in a country right now as a Christian where they're Muslims and or maybe Buddhists or maybe Hindus or maybe another religion that might come and there's persecution that's happening all over the place, all over the world. But I want you to understand something. God is not bringing us here so that we're just killed all the day long. He's trying to show us off. And there's a character that's going to come from what you're going through. There's a perseverance and a power that comes from being able to take a licking and keep on ticking. That God wants to show the world. These are those who have been called by my name. So listen, we've got a job to do, and that job is to stand. So listen, I want you to receive this message today. My hope is that you receive this. My hope is that this is a blessing to you and that you get everything that God has for you. I'm about to sign out now. I'm so glad that you were here with us today. And listen, keep on coming back. We'll be back again on Sunday at 12 o'clock with a brand new message. And I thank you so much for coming on and being a part of this worship. God bless you. Have an awesome, awesome Thursday.